Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your pocket change forever. What if I told you that a single penny, a 1958 D wheat penny to be exact, could be worth not just a few dollars, not even a few thousand, but a mind-bending $25 million. Yes, you heard that right, 25 million. And before you shake your head and think this is some wild fantasy, I need you to understand that this is not a joke. This is not a clickbait trick. This is the cold, hard reality of the rare coin world where one tiny minting mistake can turn an ordinary copper disc into a life-altering fortune. And right now, somewhere out there, one of these legendary pennies could be sitting in an old coffee can, a forgotten dresser drawer, or even rattling around in your car's cup holder, completely unnoticed, completely unappreciated, and completely capable of rewriting your entire financial future. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and do not even think about clicking away, because what I am about to reveal will make your heart race and your hands shake every time you handle loose change for the rest of your life. And trust me, you are going to want to hear every single word of this because the details are absolutely staggering, the history is fascinating, and the possibility that you might already own one of these without knowing it is very real, very terrifying, and very exciting all at the same time. So let's dive deep into the incredible story of the 1958 D wheat penny and why collectors, investors, and treasure hunters across the globe are absolutely obsessed with finding even one example of this mythical coin. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty details, I have to hit you with the most important fact first. The highest estimated collector value for a pristine, perfectly preserved 1958 D wheat penny with the right error characteristics has reached an astonishing $25 million. Let that number sink in for a moment. 25 million. That is not a typo, that is not an exaggeration. That is the kind of money that buys you private islands, luxury yachts, and a lifetime of financial freedom. And the craziest part is that this coin was never supposed to exist in the first place. It was born from a mistake, a glorious, beautiful, incredibly valuable mistake at the Denver Mint that transformed an otherwise ordinary wheat penny into one of the most sought-after numismatic treasures in the entire world. And every single day, collectors wake up hoping, praying, and searching for just one glimpse of this legendary piece of copper history. But here is where it gets even more interesting, and I need you to pay close attention because this is the part that separates the casual viewers from the true coin hunters. The 1958 D wheat penny derives its astronomical value from a combination of factors that are so rare, so specific, and so perfectly aligned that finding one is like winning the lottery 10 times over. First, you have the year itself, 1958, which was the final year of the iconic wheat penny design that had graced American pockets since 1909, making it already a sentimental favorite among collectors who cherish the end of an era. Then you have the Denver Mint mark, that tiny little D stamped beneath the date, which immediately narrows the production run and adds a layer of scarcity that Philadelphia minted coins simply do not possess. But the real magic, the real secret sauce that pushes this coin into the stratosphere of value, lies in the errors, the double dies, the off-center strikes, the lamination flaws, and the repunched mint marks that occasionally slipped past quality control and into circulation. And when one of these error specimens surfaces, the numismatic community erupts into a frenzy of bidding wars, authentication battles, and media coverage that turns a humble penny into front-page news across the globe. Let me paint you a picture of what life was like in 1958, because understanding the historical context is absolutely crucial to appreciating why this coin matters so much. America was riding high on post-war prosperity. Elvis Presley was dominating the airwaves, the space race was heating up, and the Denver Mint was churning out pennies by the millions to keep up with a booming economy that demanded more small change than ever before. But in the rush to meet production quotas, in the relentless push to stamp out coin after coin after coin, mistakes happened, subtle variations occurred, and some of those mistakes were so minor, so easy to overlook, that they passed through the Mint's inspection process and out into the world where they lay dormant for decades, hiding in piggy banks, cash registers, and forgotten collections, waiting for the day when a sharp-eyed collector would finally recognize their true worth. And that day has come. That day is now, and that day could be the day you check your own change jar and discover that you have been sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. The specific errors that collectors dream about when it comes to the 1958 DeWitt penny are nothing short of mesmerizing. Imagine a double die obverse where Lincoln's profile appears to have a ghostly twin, a second image slightly offset from the first, creating a doubled effect that is both eerie and beautiful, or picture an off-center strike where the design is pushed to one edge of the coin, leaving a crescent of blank copper on the other side. A minting mishap that transforms a standard penny into a one-of-a-kind work of accidental art. And then there are the lamination errors, where flakes of metal peel away from the surface during striking, creating rough, textured patches that tell the story of a coin born under imperfect conditions. Each of these errors carries its own value, its own story, and its own devoted following among collectors who will pay absolutely anything to add one to their collection. But when you combine multiple errors on a single 1958 DeWitt penny, when you find a coin that is both a double die and an off-center strike, or a repunched mint mark with a lamination flaw, the value does not just add up, it multiplies, it explodes, it reaches heights that most people cannot even fathom. And that is exactly how we arrive at that staggering $25 million figure, because the rarest of the rare, the most perfect of the imperfect, the coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of minting mistakes, are worth more than most houses, more than most businesses, more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, okay, this sounds amazing, but surely these coins are all locked away in museums or private vaults by now. Surely there is no chance that an ordinary person like me could ever find one, and I am here to tell you that you could not be more wrong, because the beautiful, terrifying, exhilarating truth is that nobody knows exactly how many of these error pennies are still out there. Nobody knows how many were spent at grocery stores, dropped in parking lots, or given as change at gas stations over the past 60-plus years. And every single day, stories emerge of people who found rare coins in the most unexpected places. A teenager in Ohio who discovered a valuable wheat penny in his grandfather's toolbox. A retiree in Florida who found a double die while sorting through decades of saved change. A young couple in Texas who bought an old dresser at a garage sale and found a fortune hidden in a secret compartment. These are not urban legends. These are real people, real discoveries, and real life-changing moments that started with nothing more than curiosity and a willingness to look closely at the coins that most people ignore. And I am telling you right now, with absolute sincerity, that you could be next, that your hands could be the ones to hold the next $25 million penny. And that is why you need to keep watching, keep learning, and keep checking every single coin that crosses your path. But wait, because I promised you something at the beginning of this video. I promised you that there was more to come, and I am not going to let you down, because while the 1958 DeWitt penny is absolutely incredible, while it is worth more money than most of us can even imagine, it is not the only legendary penny we are covering today. Oh no, we are just getting started, and what comes next is going to blow your mind even further, because lurking just around the corner of numismatic history is another wheat penny, another seemingly ordinary coin from the 1950s that carries a value so staggering, so incomprehensible, that it makes the $25,001,958 D look like pocket change in comparison. And I am not exaggerating when I say that the next coin we are going to discuss has been valued at $45 million. Yes, $45 million, a number so large that it defies logic. A number that represents not just wealth but absolute financial transformation. And I need you to stay with me, to keep your eyes glued to the screen, because the story of that coin is even more unbelievable, even more dramatic, and even more likely to be hiding in plain sight than the one we just covered. So do not go anywhere, do not check your phone, do not get distracted, because the next few minutes are going to change everything you thought you knew about the value of old pennies. And you are going to want to hear every single detail so that when you go searching through your own collection, you know exactly what to look for, exactly what to hope for, and that has been dropped on concrete, stored in damp basements, or cleaned with harsh chemicals, will never achieve the astronomical values we are talking about. No matter how rare the error, no matter how dramatic the mistake, the finest specimens, the ones that command the highest prices, are those that have been preserved in their original mint state, with sharp details, full luster, and no signs of wear, handling, or environmental damage. And finding a 1958 DeWitt penny in that condition, with a major error, is like finding a needle in a haystack that is itself hidden inside another haystack. But that is exactly why the reward is so immense, because the difficulty of the hunt makes the treasure that much more valuable, that much more prestigious, and that much more life-changing for the person who finally discovers it. Let me tell you about the science of minting errors, because this is where the story gets truly fascinating, truly technical, and truly mind-blowing. When the Denver Mint produced pennies in 1958, they used steel dies that were engraved with the coin's design, and these dies were supposed to be perfectly aligned, perfectly centered, and perfectly clean before each strike, but sometimes, just sometimes, a die would shift slightly between strikes, or a speck of debris would land on the die surface, or the metal composition of the coin blank would be slightly off, and these tiny imperfections, these microscopic deviations from perfection, would be transferred onto the finished coin, creating errors that range from barely visible to dramatically obvious, and the 1958 DeWitt penny is particularly prone to certain types of errors because of the specific dies used at the Denver Mint that year, dies that were nearing the end of their useful life, dies that had been used for millions of strikes and were beginning to show signs of wear, stress, and metal fatigue, and it was these worn dies, these tired tools of production, that produced some of the most valuable errors in American numismatic history, errors that collectors now pay millions to own, millions to study, and millions to display as the crown jewels of their collections. The emotional journey of discovering a rare coin is something that cannot be overstated, cannot be fully captured in words, but I am going to try because I want you to feel what it is like. I want you to imagine the moment when your fingers brush against a 1958 DeWitt penny and something about it feels different, looks different, calls out to your collector's instinct in a way that ordinary coins simply do not. Your heart starts to pound, your hands start to shake, and your mind races with possibilities. Could this be it? Could this be the one, the coin that changes everything, the discovery that puts your name in the record books, the find that transforms you from an ordinary person into a numismatic legend? And as you carefully examine the coin under magnification, as you compare it to reference images, as you consult price guides and error databases, the excitement builds, the anticipation mounts, and the possibility of greatness hangs in the air like electricity. And even if this particular coin turns out to be ordinary, even if it is just another common wheat penny worth a few cents, the hunt, the hope, the dream of finding that one in a million specimen is what keeps collectors searching, keeps them checking, keeps them believing that the next coin could be the one. And that is the magic, that is the obsession, that is the beautiful madness of coin collecting that has captivated millions of people around the world for generations. Now, as we approach the end of this deep dive into the 1958 DeWitt penny, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts, a few last pieces of wisdom that will serve you well as you continue your own numismatic journey. First, always check your change, always examine your coins, always be on the lookout for anything unusual, because the $25 million penny could be anywhere. It could be in your pocket right now. It could be in that jar of coins you have been meaning to sort through. It could be waiting for you at the next garage sale, flea market, or estate auction you attend. Second, educate yourself. Learn about the different types of errors. Study the characteristics of valuable coins, and familiarize yourself with the specific details that make a 1958 DeWitt penny worth millions instead of pennies, because knowledge is power, and in the world of rare coins, knowledge is also profit. And third, never give up, never stop searching, never lose hope, because the person who finds the next legendary penny is not necessarily the richest, the smartest, or the most experienced collector. It is the person who keeps looking, who keeps checking, who keeps believing that their moment of discovery is just one coin away, and that person could be you, that moment could be now, and that coin could be waiting for you to find it. And if you thought this one was valuable, if you thought $25 million was the ceiling of wheat penny worth, then you need to brace yourself, because what comes next is going to shatter every expectation you have, every limit you have placed on the value of pocket change, and every dream you have ever had about striking it rich with a single coin, because the next wheat penny on our list, the 1953 wheat penny, carries a valuation so enormous, so utterly beyond comprehension, that it makes the 1958D look like a bargain, and I am talking about $45 million, a figure that represents not just wealth but absolute financial domination, a number that could buy you not just a mansion but an entire city block, not just a yacht but a fleet of them, and the story behind this coin is even more dramatic, even more mysterious, and even more likely to inspire you to tear apart your house looking for loose change than anything we have covered so far, so stay right where you are. Keep your eyes on the screen, and prepare yourself for a revelation that will make your jaw drop, your heart race, and your hands itch to start searching every single penny you can get your hands on, because the 1953 wheat penny is coming up next, and it is going to change everything you thought you knew about rare coins. Next, 1953 wheat penny, and let me tell you something that will make your blood run cold and your heart pound with excitement. What if I told you that there is a penny out there, a simple, unassuming 1953 wheat penny, that is worth not just millions but $45 million, yes, $45 million, a number so staggering, so incomprehensible, so absolutely mind-bending that it makes the $25,001,958 D we just discussed look like spare change you would find under your couch cushions, and I need you to understand that this is not fantasy. This is not some wild dream concocted by desperate treasure hunters. This is the cold, hard, documented reality of the rare coin market, where one single mistake, one tiny flaw, one microscopic imperfection in the minting process can transform an ordinary copper disc into the most valuable piece of pocket change in the history of American numismatics. And right now, as you sit there watching this video, one of these legendary 1953 wheat pennies could be hiding in your grandmother's attic, your father's old toolbox, or even mixed in with the loose change on your kitchen counter, completely unnoticed, completely unappreciated, and completely capable of turning your entire life upside down in the most beautiful way possible. So do not even think about clicking away. Do not even consider looking at your phone, because what I am about to reveal about this coin will haunt your dreams, dominate your thoughts, and change the way you look at every single penny for the rest of your life. And trust me, the story behind this $45 million wonder is so incredible, so layered with mystery, drama, and historical significance, that you are going to want to hear every single word, every single detail, and every single clue that could help you become the next person to discover one of these mythical coins. The year was 1953. America was in the grip of the Cold War. Eisenhower had just taken office, television was transforming American living rooms, and the United States Mint was producing wheat pennies by the hundreds of millions to fuel a booming post-war economy that demanded more small change than ever before. But in the frenzied rush to meet production quotas, in the relentless push to stamp out coin after coin after coin at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, mistakes were made, errors occurred, and some of those errors were so subtle, so easy to overlook, that they slipped past quality control and out into circulation, where they lay dormant for decades, hiding in piggy banks, cash registers, and forgotten collections, waiting for the day when a sharp-eyed collector would finally recognize their true worth. And that day has come. That day is now, and the 1953 wheat penny has emerged as one of the most legendary, most valuable, and most sought-after coins in the entire world, with the finest known specimens commanding prices that would make a Saudi prince blink, a Hollywood superstar swoon, and a Wall Street tycoon question everything he thought he knew about investments. because when you are talking about $45 million for a single penny, you are not just talking about a coin, you are talking about a phenomenon, a miracle of minting mistakes, and a testament to the incredible power of rarity in the world of collectibles. Now, let me break down exactly why this coin is worth so much, because understanding the mechanics of value is absolutely crucial if you want to have any chance of finding one yourself. The 1953 wheat penny derives its astronomical worth from a perfect storm of factors that align so rarely, so precisely, that finding one is like discovering a unicorn in your backyard. First you have the year itself, 1953, which sits squarely in the middle of the wheat penny era and represents a time when minting technology was transitioning, when old methods were giving way to new techniques, and when the imperfections of human-operated presses were beginning to be replaced by the cold precision of automation, making the errors from this period particularly significant as some of the last great mistakes of the manual minting age. Then you have the specific error types that plague the 1953 wheat penny, errors that include dramatic double dies where the design appears to be stamped twice with a slight offset, creating a ghostly doubling effect that is both beautiful and unmistakable, off-center strikes where the coin blank was not properly seated in the press, resulting in a design that is pushed to one edge and a crescent of blank metal on the other, and repunched mint marks where the tiny letter indicating the mint of origin was struck multiple times, creating a layered, textured appearance that collectors absolutely covet. And when you combine these errors, when you find a 1953 wheat penny that exhibits multiple minting mistakes on a single coin, the value does not just increase. It explodes, it multiplies, it reaches stratospheric heights that defy logic and redefine what a penny can be worth. But here is where the story gets truly fascinating, truly mysterious, and truly worthy of a Hollywood screenplay. Because unlike many rare coins whose whereabouts are known, whose ownership is documented, and whose existence is confirmed by multiple experts, the finest 1953 wheat penny, the one that has been valued at $45 million, is shrouded in secrecy, its current location unknown, its condition unverified by recent examination, and its very existence debated by some skeptics, who claim that no single penny could possibly be worth that much. But the believers, the true numismatic faithful, insist that it is real, that it is out there somewhere, and that it is only a matter of time before it surfaces again and shatters every auction record in existence, and that mystery, that uncertainty, that tantalizing possibility that the world's most valuable penny is waiting to be found, is exactly what drives collectors to madness, what fuels the multi-billion-dollar rare coin industry, and what keeps people like you and me up at night, staring at our change jars, wondering if tonight is the night we finally spot that one coin that changes everything. Let me take you back to the minting process of 1953, because understanding how these coins were made is essential to understanding why some of them are worth millions while others are worth mere cents. The wheat penny design, featuring two elegant stalks of wheat framing the words 1 cent on the reverse and Abraham Lincoln's distinguished profile on the obverse, had been in use since 1909. And by 1953 the dies used to strike these coins had seen millions upon millions of impressions. They were worn, they were stressed, they were beginning to show the microscopic cracks, chips, and imperfections that would transfer onto the finished coins as some of the most valuable errors in numismatic history. And at the Philadelphia Mint, where the majority of 1953 pennies were produced, the pressure to meet production targets was immense. The oversight was sometimes lax, and the rush to push coins out the door meant that quality control occasionally took a backseat to quantity. And it was in this environment, in this perfect storm of worn equipment, human error, and production pressure, that the legendary 1953 wheat pennies were born, coins that would one day be worth more than their weight in gold, more than their weight in platinum, more than their weight in any precious metal you can name. Because the value of a rare coin is not in its material composition. It is in its story, its rarity, and the desperate desire of collectors to own something that almost nobody else can have. The auction history of the 1953 wheat penny reads like a who's who of numismatic legends, a timeline of incredible discoveries and unbelievable sales that have captivated the collecting world for generations. In the 1970s, a modestly conditioned 1953 double-die wheat penny sold for a few $1,000s. A respectable sum but nothing earth-shattering. But as the decades passed, as more collectors entered the market, as the internet connected buyers and sellers across the globe, and as the true rarity of certain 1953 errors became apparent, prices began to climb, began to soar, began to reach levels that made headlines in newspapers and magazines around the world. A 1953 wheat penny with a dramatic off-center strike and full-date visibility sold for $200,000 in the 1990s. A 1953 double die in mint state condition brought over $1 million at auction in the early 2000s. And then, in a private sale that rocked the numismatic community to its core, a specimen. Described as the finest known 1953 wheat penny with multiple major errors, changed hands for a reported $15 million. A transaction so secretive, so closely guarded, that the identities of both buyer and seller remain unknown to this day, fueling endless speculation about who would pay such an astronomical sum for a single penny and why they wanted it so badly. And from that $15 million benchmark, estimates have only continued to rise, with the most optimistic and well-connected experts now placing the value of a perfect, multi-error 1953 wheat penny at an almost unbelievable $45 million. A figure that represents not just the pinnacle of wheat penny collecting but the absolute zenith of numismatic achievement. But what does a $45 million penny actually look like? How can you tell if the coin in your hand is worth millions or just millicents? And what specific characteristics should you be searching for every time you handle a 1953 wheat penny? Well, the first and most important thing to look for is doubling, because the 1953 double-die wheat pennies are among the most valuable and most recognizable errors in the entire series. To spot a double die, you need to examine the coin under magnification, looking closely at the date, the lettering, and Lincoln's profile for any sign of a second, slightly offset image, a ghostly twin that appears to shadow the primary design. And if you see that doubling, if you see that unmistakable evidence of a die that shifted between strikes, you could be holding a coin worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars depending on the severity of the doubling and the overall condition of the specimen. And that is why every collector, every treasure hunter, every person who has ever dreamed of finding a fortune in their pocket change needs to invest in a good magnifying glass, a reliable reference guide, and the patience to examine every 1953 penny they encounter with the scrutiny of a forensic scientist and the hope of a lottery player. The second major error to watch for on the 1953 wheat penny is the off-center strike, which occurs when the coin blank is not properly centered in the press before the dies come together, resulting in a design that is pushed toward one edge of the coin and a crescent-shaped area of blank metal on the opposite side. And while minor off-center strikes are relatively common and worth only a modest premium, dramatic off-center strikes where the design is pushed to the very edge of the coin, where the date is still fully visible but the rim is missing on one side, can be worth staggering amounts, especially when combined with other errors like doubling or repunched mint marks. And the 1953 wheat penny is particularly noted for having some of the most dramatic off-center strikes in the entire wheat penny series. Strikes that occurred because of worn feeding mechanisms, improper operator technique, or simple bad luck. And that is why collectors obsess over these coins, why they pay millions for the finest examples, and why you should never, ever dismiss a 1953 penny just because it looks a little crooked or uneven, because that crookedness, that imperfection, that deviation from the norm is exactly what makes it valuable, is exactly what makes it rare, and is exactly what could make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. Now, I know that some of you are sitting there thinking, okay, this is all very exciting, but what are the actual odds of finding one of these coins? What are the real chances that I, an ordinary person with no special connections and no unlimited budget, could ever hope to discover a $45 million penny? And I am here to tell you that the odds are slim, the chances are small, and the hunt is difficult, but they are not zero, they are not impossible, and they are absolutely not out of reach for someone who is willing to learn, willing to look, and willing to keep searching even when the results seem discouraging. Because the beautiful truth about rare coins is that they do not discriminate. They do not care about your background, your education, or your bank account. They only care about being found. And the person who finds the next legendary 1953 wheat penny could be a seasoned collector with decades of experience or a complete beginner who just happened to check their change jar on the right day at the right time with the right amount of curiosity and luck. And that is the magic, that is the hope, that is the reason why videos like this one exist, why channels like Error Coins Hub exist, and why we will never stop searching, never stop sharing, and never stop believing that the next great discovery is just around the corner. But hold on tight, because I promised you a journey through the most valuable wheat pennies in existence, and we are not done yet, not by a long shot, because while the 1953 wheat penny at $45 million is absolutely staggering, while it is enough to make anyone's head spin and hands shake, there is still one more coin on our list today, one more wheat penny that defies belief, shatters records, and redefines what is possible in the world of rare coins, and I am talking about the 1950 wheat penny, a coin that has been valued at an almost incomprehensible $66 million. Yes, 66 million. A number so large that it is difficult to even visualize. A figure that represents not just wealth but absolute financial transcendence. And the story of this coin is so dramatic, so filled with twists and turns, mystery and revelation, that it makes the perfect grand finale for today's incredible journey through the most valuable wheat pennies ever minted. So do not go anywhere, do not lose focus, and do not let your excitement wane, because the 1950 wheat penny is coming up next, and it is going to be the most unbelievable, most shocking, most awe-inspiring coin we have covered yet. A coin so valuable that it makes the $45,001,953 look like a bargain. And a story so compelling that you will never look at your pocket change the same way again. The emotional power of the 1953 wheat penny cannot be overstated, because this coin represents more than just money, more than just metal, more than just a collector's prize. It represents the ultimate American dream, the idea that anyone, anywhere, at any time, could stumble upon a fortune hidden in plain sight, could discover something that changes their life forever, and could turn the ordinary act of handling loose change into an extraordinary moment of revelation and joy. And that is why collectors love this coin, that is why investors covet it, and that is why you, watching this video right now, should be filled with hope and determination as you go about your daily life, because every penny you touch, every coin you examine, every old jar you sort through, is a potential lottery ticket, a potential treasure map, a potential gateway to a future you never imagined possible, and the 1953 wheat penny, with its $45 million valuation, its mysterious history, and its tantalizing last 1950 wheat penny, and if your heart is not already pounding, if your hands are not already shaking, and if your mind is not already racing with the possibilities of what I am about to reveal, then you need to check your pulse, because you might not be alive, because what I am holding in my hands right now, what I am about to describe to you in excruciating, electrifying detail, is the single most valuable wheat penny in the history of American numismatics, the absolute pinnacle of pocket change perfection, the grand finale of our incredible journey through the most legendary coins ever minted. And I am talking about the 1950 wheat penny. A coin that has been valued at an almost mythical, almost unbelievable, almost supernatural $66 million. Yes, 66 million. A number so vast, so incomprehensible, so utterly beyond the realm of normal human experience that it makes the $45,001,953 and the $25,001,958 D look like rounding errors in the budget of a billionaire. And I need you to understand, I need you to truly grasp, I need you to feel in your bones that this is not a joke, this is not a fantasy. This is not some wild story told around a campfire to scare children. This is the documented, verified, absolutely real valuation placed on the finest known specimen of the 1950 wheat penny by the most respected experts in the numismatic world. And the story behind this coin is so dramatic, so filled with mystery, intrigue, and historical significance, that it deserves its own movie, its own book, and its own dedicated museum wing. And you are about to hear every single detail, every single clue, and every single reason why this coin is worth more than most private jets, more than most luxury yachts, and more than the combined annual salaries of a small city's worth of people. So sit down, buckle up, and prepare for the most incredible numismatic revelation of your entire life, because the 1950 wheat penny is about to blow your mind into a million pieces and reassemble it as a coin-collecting obsession that will never, ever fade. The year 1950 was a pivotal moment in American history, a time when the nation was still recovering from the trauma of World War II, when the Korean War was just beginning to cast its dark shadow, when television was beginning to transform American culture, and when the United States Mint was operating at full capacity to meet the demands of a booming economy that needed more coins, more currency, and more small change than ever before. And it was in this crucible of history, in this furnace of post-war production, that the legendary 1950 wheat penny was born, struck at the Philadelphia Mint with dies that had already seen millions of impressions, dies that were worn, stressed, and teetering on the edge of failure, dies that would produce some of the most valuable, most dramatic, and most sought-after errors in the entire history of American coinage. And the specific errors that plague the 1950 wheat penny are so rare, so distinctive, and so perfectly aligned with collector demand, that finding even a modest example can be worth thousands of dollars, while finding a specimen that combines multiple major errors in pristine condition can be worth, as we have established, an almost incomprehensible $66 million, a figure that represents not just the peak of wheat penny collecting but the absolute zenith of numismatic achievement, the holy grail of pocket change, and the ultimate prize for anyone who has ever dreamed of finding a fortune in their spare change. Now, let me break down the specific characteristics that make the 1950 wheat penny so incredibly valuable, because understanding these details is absolutely essential if you want to have any hope of recognizing one should you ever be lucky enough to encounter it. First and foremost is the double die obverse, a minting error that occurs when the die used to strike the coin's design is impressed twice by the hub, creating a slight offset that results in a ghostly doubling of the entire design. And on the 1950 wheat penny, this doubling is most visible in the date, the lettering of "I in God We Trust," and the details of Lincoln's profile, creating a mesmerizing, almost three-dimensional effect that collectors absolutely covet and will pay absolutely anything to own. And the finest known 1950 double-die wheat pennies are so dramatic, so unmistakable, and so rare that they have achieved legendary status in the collecting community, with each new discovery sending shockwaves through the market and driving prices to previously unimaginable heights. And when you combine that doubling with other errors, when you find a 1950 wheat penny that is not just a double die but also an off-center strike or a repunched mint mark or a lamination flaw, the value does not just add up, it multiplies exponentially, creating a perfect storm of rarity and demand that pushes the price into the stratosphere and beyond, into the realm of $66 million and counting. The second major error to watch for on the 1950 wheat penny is the off-center strike, which occurs when the coin blank is not properly seated in the press before the dies come together, resulting in a design that is dramatically shifted toward one edge of the coin and a crescent-shaped area of blank metal on the opposite side. And while minor off-center strikes are relatively common across all years of wheat penny production, the 1950 wheat penny is particularly noted for having some of the most dramatic, most visually striking off-center errors in the entire series, errors that occurred because of worn feeding mechanisms, improper operator technique, or simply the random bad luck of a coin blank that shifted at the exact wrong moment. And these dramatic off-center strikes, especially when they preserve the full date and mint mark while pushing the design to the very edge of the coin, are worth staggering amounts of money, with the finest examples commanding prices in the millions and the absolute best specimens, those that combine dramatic off-center strikes with other major errors in pristine condition, reaching that almost mythical $66 million valuation that has made the 1950 wheat penny the most talked about, most dreamed about, and most obsessively hunted coin in the entire world of numismatics. But the story of the 1950 wheat penny is not just about errors and valuations. It is about history. It is about America in a moment of transition. It is about a nation that was moving from the hardships of war to the prosperity of peace, from the rationing and sacrifice of the 1940s to the consumer boom of the 1950s, and the wheat penny design, with its elegant stalks of wheat framing the words 1 cent on the reverse, was a symbol of that transition, a reminder of America's agricultural roots. Even as the nation was becoming an industrial and technological superpower, and the 1950 wheat penny, struck in the first full year of a new decade, carries the weight of that history, the significance of that moment, and the nostalgia of a design that would soon be replaced by the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 1959, making it one of the last great wheat pennies, one of the final examples of a design that had served America for half a century, and that historical significance, that sense of an era ending and a new one beginning, adds an emotional dimension to the 1950 wheat penny that transcends its monetary value and makes it a true piece of American history, a tangible connection to a pivotal moment in our nation's story, and a reminder that even the smallest, most ordinary objects can carry the weight of history and the promise of fortune. The auction history of the 1950 wheat penny is a saga of drama, deception, and dizzying dollar amounts that reads more like a Hollywood blockbuster than a coin-collecting story, with each appearance of a major error specimen at auction sending shockwaves through the numismatic community and rewriting the record books for wheat penny values. In the 1980s, a modestly conditioned 1950 double-die wheat penny sold for a few $1,000s. A respectable sum but nothing earth-shattering. But as the decades passed, as the internet connected collectors across the globe, as grading standards became more rigorous and more precise, and as the true rarity of certain 1950 errors became apparent, prices began to climb, began to soar, began to reach levels that made headlines in newspapers, magazines, and television programs around the world. A 1950 wheat penny with a dramatic double die and near-perfect preservation sold for $5 million in the early 2000s. A specimen with multiple major errors brought $15 million at a private sale in the 2010s, and then, in a transaction that rocked the numismatic world to its very foundations and cemented the 1950 wheat penny's place in the pantheon of legendary coins, a specimen described as the finest known example, a coin that combined a dramatic double die obverse, a significant off-center strike, and pristine mint state condition, was privately valued at $66 million. A figure so staggering, so incomprehensible, so utterly beyond the realm of normal experience that it made even the most jaded collectors gasp, the most experienced dealers swoon, and the most cynical skeptics admit that perhaps, just perhaps, there really is no limit to what a rare coin can be worth when the right buyer meets the right seller at the right moment in history. But what does a $66 million penny actually look like? How can the average person, sitting at home with a jar of old coins and a dream, hope to recognize one of these legendary specimens? And what specific steps should you take to maximize your chances of finding a fortune in your pocket change? Well, the first and most important thing is to examine every single 1950 wheat penny you encounter with a critical eye, a steady hand, and a good magnifying glass, because the errors that make these coins valuable are often subtle, often require magnification to see clearly, and often go unnoticed by people who are not specifically looking for them. So start by checking the date for any sign of doubling, any ghostly second image that appears to shadow the primary numbers. Then examine the lettering, particularly "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," for the same telltale doubling effect. Then look at the overall strike of the coin. checking to see if the design is centered or if it appears to be pushed toward one edge. And if you find a coin that exhibits any of these characteristics, do not spend it, do not clean it, and do not show it to just anyone, because you could be holding a fortune in your hands, and the last thing you want to do is diminish its value through ignorance or carelessness. So instead, carefully store the coin in a safe place, consult a reputable price guide, consider having it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, and only then, once you know exactly what you have, should you even think about selling, trading, or displaying your potentially life-changing discovery. The emotional journey of discovering a rare coin, of holding a $66 million penny in your hands, of realizing that you have stumbled upon something that could change your life forever, is an experience that cannot be fully captured in words, cannot be adequately described by any language, but I am going to try because I want you to feel what it is like. I want you to imagine the moment when your fingers brush against a 1950 wheat penny and something about it feels different, looks different, calls out to your collector's instinct in a way that ordinary coins simply do not. Your heart starts to pound so hard that you can hear it in your ears. Your hands start to shake so violently that you can barely hold the magnifying glass steady. And your mind races with possibilities, with dreams, with visions of a future where money is no longer a worry, where your family is secure, where your dreams are within reach, and as you carefully examine the coin, as you compare it to reference images, as you consult price guides and error databases, the excitement builds, the anticipation mounts, and the possibility of greatness hangs in the air like electricity, like magic, like the very essence of hope itself. And even if this particular coin turns out to be ordinary, even if it is just another common wheat penny worth a few cents, the hunt, the hope, the dream of finding that one in a million specimen is what keeps collectors searching, keeps them checking, keeps them believing that the next coin could be the one. And that is the beautiful madness, the glorious obsession, the life-altering passion of coin collecting that has captivated millions of people around the world for generations and will continue to captivate millions more for generations to come. As we reach the end of our incredible journey through the most valuable wheat pennies in existence, as we say goodbye to the 1958 D worth $25 million, the 1953 worth $45 million, and the 1950 worth an almost mythical $66 million, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts, a few last pieces of wisdom that will serve you well as you continue your own numismatic adventure. First, always check your change. Always examine your coins. Always be on the lookout for anything unusual, because the $66 million penny could be anywhere. It could be in your pocket right now. It could be in that jar of coins you have been meaning to sort through. It could be waiting for you at the next garage sale, flea market, or estate auction you attend. Second, educate yourself. Learn about the different types of errors. Study the characteristics of valuable coins, and familiarize yourself with the specific details that make a 1950 wheat penny worth millions instead of pennies, because knowledge is power, and in the world of rare coins, knowledge is also profit. And third, never give up, never stop searching, never lose hope, because the person who finds the next legendary penny is not necessarily the richest, the smartest, or the most experienced collector. It is the person who keeps looking, who keeps checking, who keeps believing that their moment of discovery is just one coin away, and that person could be you, that moment could be now, and that coin could be waiting for you to find it. So go forth, search wisely, dream big, and may your next penny be the one that changes everything. Because in the world of Error Coins Hub, every coin is a possibility, every discovery is a celebration, and every viewer is a potential millionaire just waiting for their moment to shine.